Hey y'all, welcome back to Of Little and Light. I'm Samantha. Today we're going to talk about a production problem we've been having here on the farm. We have a doe in milk, her name is Selah, and recently she's been dipping in production, which isn't a terrible thing because we are planning to dry her off around December the 10th or so. Because she's due to have babies, hopefully around February the 10th. But I'm really not quite ready to dry her off yet, so I need her to get her production back up. From my previous experience owning dairy goats and doing some research and talking to a friend who has some goats, we've come up with a plan to get her supply back up. She'll never get back to what she was at peak production, but we can get more than what we're getting now. So today I'm going to give you 5 tips on how to up production in your dairy does, one product that I highly recommend buying, and one guaranteed way to get more milk. So tip number 1 is to establish a milking routine. This part is very important no matter if you're trying to get more milk or you're drying off or you're maintaining, whatever you're doing, you need a good solid milk routine. You can milk once a day, you can milk twice, you can even milk 3 times a day if you want to. I myself generally milk at around 8:30 in the morning and 8:30 in the evening. Now you don't have to milk 12 hours apart. Let's say you get up at 7 and you want to milk 7:30 and 6:30 or 7:30 and 5:30. As long as it's the same times every day, you're fine. You also don't have to milk twice a day. You can milk once a day. You just have to make sure you don't suddenly jump to once a day because it's not good for their udder. So with that in mind, after you've decided how many times you're going to milk a day, set your time and do it at the same time every day. Now, let's make your routine. I have a video about this. I'll link it in the show notes below. It's very important to have a milking routine for the production part, but also because you need to be nice and clean with your milk if you're planning on drinking it yourself. And you need to be clean so that your doe doesn't get sick. Mastitis is going to kill your supply and could very easily kill your goat if you're not very careful. So, make a routine. That's my sweet girls. So tip number 2 is to look at your feed. You need to be feeding really high quality grain and hay. The best hay you can get is gonna be have more of a green color to it. The really brown and brittle hay that you would get from big name farm supply stores, it's not great. All the nutrients are gone. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them are gone, and you could definitely do better. And when a goat isn't getting enough nutrients to take care of herself, she's going to stop putting all of those calories into making milk and start saving them for herself. So you want to make sure you're getting good quality feed and hay. The hay that I personally feed is kind of middle of the road hay. It's not amazing, but it's definitely better than some stuff I could get. Now, I also supplement with perennial peanut hay, which is higher in protein and it's better for their stomachs, for their rumen. Goats are ruminant animals, so they need a lot of browse to help churn and get everything nice and digested. So peanut hay is great for that. Now, as for grains, your best bet is to find whole grains that are locally milled, if that's possible. I realize that that's not possible for everyone. And even if it is available, sometimes it's expensive, which is the thing we've been dealing with lately. For a bag of feed that's really good grain, it's like $20 or something, versus you get something at Tractor Supply for $10. There comes a point when you have to decide what's worth it. So for us, we started mixing our own feed. That's a relatively new endeavor, so I can't really tell you if it's worth it yet. But soon, I will have made a decision. That's tip number 2. If you're having issues with production, look at your feed. Tip number 3 is to add in an additional milking session. This is something that I'm actually trying out right now. Today will be my second day milking her 3 times a day. Now, that's definitely not an option for a lot of people. I stay at home with my son, so I have the time to be able to come out here. If you're working during the day and this isn't an option for you, that's okay. There are other ways to get your milk up. But adding in an additional milking is going to stimulate more milk production. Her body is going to say, oh, I'm out of milk and baby is still hungry, so it's going to start producing more milk. At least that is the hope. I have noticed this morning that she seemed to have more milk. But again, this is only our second day in, so I can't really tell you if it's making a big enough impact yet. Tip number 4 is to actually up the amount of grain that your goat is getting. Grain is kind of a touchy subject with goats because too much of it can really upset their stomach and lead to bloat, and you don't want to do that. But if they're not getting enough of it, then they're not getting the nutrients they need, again, to produce the amount of milk that you're wanting to get from them. The recommendation is that you add in a little bit more grain per milking session until you get to a point where when adding more grain, you're not getting more milk. That's supposed to be your like perfect spot. That's another thing that we're working on here, is trying to find that perfect balance of the amount of grain she needs to make more milk and the amount of milk we'll actually get back from her eating that much grain. Okay, so tip number 5 is to milk your dough completely out. And I don't mean just like once you get down to the last strains and it's like kind of coming out. I mean like you go until you can't get more than a drop to come out. If you're not taking all of the milk from her, her udder will tell her brain, okay, well there's still milk in here, so the baby's not that hungry, we don't need to make that much more. So if you milk it all the way out, I think Justin Rhodes says he milks until he can squeeze 5 times without getting any milk out. Then that udder tells brain, hey, baby is still very hungry, we need to keep making milk. So the next time you go to milk, theoretically, there should be more milk. So those are my 5 tips to get production up. Now, my one product that I highly recommend getting if you're trying to up your production or not, for any dairy animal, is Dynamint udder cream. This isn't sponsored or anything. I just love Dynamint. Like, this udder cream is amazing. So it's organic, it's made from essential oils, and what else? A soothing combination of essential oils in a gentle cream base, especially formulated for use on the udders of cows. It has water, peppermint oil, calendula oil, eucalyptus oil, salt, some other things that I can't pronounce, tea tree oil. Anyways, it's amazing. Highly, highly recommend. I don't think that it's advertised as helping get their production up, but it has always helped. We're out. There's very, very little in here. I need to order some. I bought this on Amazon. It was like $20 or something. I'll link it in the show notes. What it does is the peppermint oil stimulates the circulatory system, so it makes blood pump to the udder, and that causes it to fill more. The more vascular that udder is, the more it wants to produce, or the more it helps it produce, I should say. The other thing about putting an udder cream of any kind on is the massaging itself of putting the cream on simulates a baby wanting to nurse more and there not being any milk. Now there is one final guaranteed way to get more milk, and that is to breed your doe again. At some point, her production is going to stop. It might be 8 months into milking, it might be 2 years into milking, but eventually she's going to stop making milk. And at that point, what you have to do is just breed her again so she can have another kid, or kids, hopefully, and start making more milk for you. And that's just the cycle of dairy. That's how it works. While we are doing all of this to get Sayla's production back up, she is already bred, and she should be due around February. So at the very least, we'll have our production back then. But for now, these are my tips, tricks, and advice on getting your goat to give you more milk. All right, well, thank you guys for hanging out with us today. I hope these tips are helpful. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up for us. So until we meet again, say bye. Bye, y'all.